What's up, everybody? It's Mike Johnson, Yellow Buffalo. Good to see you again. I have taken a couple of days off. I was chilling. Sunday was actually very nice. You know, I sat, listened to my reggae praise and worship music, which I do every Sunday. And then Richard and I went to Last Laugh Sunday. And we did some performance, actually. We did a couple of songs. We did Feeling High, which is one that everybody is really loving. We performed it a couple of times, and that is a fan favorite. And Crunk Like Me, which is the newest one that we've been doing. And I like that one. I like that one because, you know, it's a, you know, wild, shake it, dance, you know, fun time. So we're doing that. I actually took yesterday and tried to do a couple of videos, but it just didn't work. I got most of the way through one video and I just started yawning, you know, and I was like, man, am I that boring? And then I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to scrap it. And it was a good, excuse me, good video. And then, you know, there was another one, as you know, I imbibe cannabis, you know, I enjoy, I guess imbibe isn't the word, but I partake in cannabis, and you know, so sometimes to clear my throat afterwards, etc. You know, as part of the process, and you know, I know that there's some health stuff that goes along with that, like you know, smoke in your lungs is not good, no matter what kind of smoke it is. Even though cannabis does have a lot of medicinal purposes, it's better to eat it. So I'm gonna try and switch to eating here soon, and then you won't be hearing me clear my throat so often. But it was great. Yeah, we went and performed those two songs and came back here for a minute, and Richard was working on some stuff, and then we went out to the bar and did some karaoke, which is my favorite place to go, actually. You know, there's two places that I really enjoy going. But one I love because it's like a metal bar and people actually go and they sing metal and you can actually enjoy yourself, you know, without people, wow, that's too much, you know. And then, you know, there's this other bar where, you know, it's kind of a college crowd, you know, really exciting, upbeat, lively, you know, and I can sing pretty much whatever I want and people just absolutely love it. It's great. You know, and for those of you who don't know, I was a karaoke DJ for about 7 years and decided to take some time off for a while. It's difficult being a third party person when dealing with music because you've got the establishment. You've got the ownership of the establishment, you've got the entertainment company, and then you've got the talent. So that's a lot of people to deal with, especially when you're dealing with like managers that are a part of the establishment, but then that manager deals with your boss, you know, it's complicated. And then I went to go independent, and then that's simple. You go owner, you know, I did owner to owner, and the guy just, you know, it just didn't work out. It didn't work out. And so right now I'm like, yeah, let me see what YouTube can do. I'm being real. Like, I don't know exactly what the best thing for me to do is, like, to be the most entertaining. I've been looking at these faceless documentaries, and you'll notice that a lot of my videos I'm not repeatedly clearing my throat. So this is probably a newer thing, to be real with you. I was raging pretty hard on Sunday night. I was saying "Bodies" by Drowning Pool. So if you know anything about that, you know that takes a lot out of your voice and, you know, kind of rips your throat a little bit if you're not in practice. So, but I sounded good. I sounded really good. It was fun. So I want to get back to what we were talking about last weekend, last Saturday, and I wanted to be clear that just like I said, I Sunday morning I woke up, took a shower, listened to praise and worship music, and just spent my day doing that until Richard showed up, and then we sat and ate some food, and then we started working on music. And, this is really the most important thing about this that you should know is I am a believer. I believe in Jesus. I believe in the resurrection. I believe in miracles. And this is why I believe. Just because I was raised to be Christian doesn't mean that I have to follow all of the doctrine that there is. Because I'm going to tell you something. There are so many different denominations of Christianity that somebody can't tell me that I'm not a Christian because I don't agree with one thing or another. Because it comes down to Jesus. It doesn't come down to identity politics. It doesn't come down to what somebody's, pastor says, etc. It comes down to Jesus and those red letters. And I don't read the King James, but we'll get into that. I have read the King James plenty of times. That's why I say those red letters are the only thing that's really important when you want to get down to the way we're supposed to behave. Now, there have been significant translations and changes, and the Bible is not what these 64 books, in the Protestant Bible, it's these books. That's not intentionally, it wasn't the intention. See, you gotta go, and I'm gonna just say this real quick because I know I've got some time on here, but I also want to delve deeper into this. So there are 3 different creation stories. First creation story is Genesis 1, then Genesis 2, and then you have one in John 1. Now, without delving all deep into all these, I'm just going to let you know that this means, in my mind, that God created humanity and then chose to create Adam and Eve specifically. And this is something that I've learned in my classes. I took, there was just intro, some rare classes. But, it was something that I had to stop hating myself, for, being all that I am. And I had to start understanding exactly where my beliefs came from and where my identity came from. And so I actually took some classes, about this. And if you want to know a really good book, there's actually a couple of really good books. But the most thorough, in-depth book that I would suggest is Introduction to the Bible by Bart Ehrman. Bart D. Ehrman. This guy goes into all of Judaism and Christianity, and he may talk about other things, but I know him from this, from the book that I read when I was in college that he wrote, and all of the different interviews, podcasts, speeches, that he has done that have helped me to think, maybe there's more to this religion than I actually thought. And I would like those of you who don't identify as Christian to just hang on a second, because it feels like I'm actually fishing, but I'm not. I'm not. What I'm doing is I'm telling you how I believe and how I feel so we can get this schism out. of the way. We're fighting over these divisions because everybody is going further and further to opposite poles. Now, if this is, we'll get to that. The reason why I say this is because God gave truths to all peoples. If you look at the Tower of Babel, the idea was, we all wanted to go up and meet God. Some say it was to kill God, but the idea is we wanted to build up, and usurp his throne. And so what God did was choose to change our tongues. He confused our tongues and made it so that we are unable to understand each other. And you know what? I have seen people who I consider brothers not understand me before, and I'm speaking complete English to them, and we're not high on any drugs or anything. We're just talking to one another, and they can't understand a word of what I'm saying, and I'm speaking complete English. So I've seen this happen before. And so everybody, and this is I want to let you know that when I am telling when I'm telling of these things, I'm going to say it's because these are traditions that I would like to pass on with the knowledge that I have gained just in the past few years of research. I could say my whole life, but the fact is, you take this last decade and it's really changed the way that I look at my beliefs. And at the time, Christian was a bad word in my language. It's a very bad word. You got to remember, I'm coming from being, LGBT, historically, what happened with African Americans, what happened with Native Americans, what has happened all around the entire planet, they say under the name of Jesus Christ. But it was usually under the name of the crown, or, under the name of money, or, under the name of power and control. These are all the things that they were doing, but it wasn't about Jesus. And it wasn't about, teaching love and forgiveness. It was about control. It was about putting a boot on someone's neck. And that is not what Christianity is about. And I pretty much just do my verse of the day these days. And then I can go, oh yeah, that's what, because I have kind of a working knowledge of the Bible now. Because I read it as a history, of a people, as opposed to looking at it as, a magical text. And I would like people to understand that when I say magical text, I mean supernatural. Can I say that I believe that, every single word of the Bible is God-breathed and everything is, concurrent and congruent, and that, it was all one author, that it was univocal? No, I cannot, because I know for a fact that there were different authors. I know that there were different writers, and there were different storytellers, and people who were teaching these stories that they were taught as they were growing up. But what happened is you have, and oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember this. There was was it Nicaea? I'm having a mental block right now, but I'm pretty sure there was council that got together and they said, hey, so we want to have one voice. We want to have one story in our beliefs. And this is the actual like beginning of Hebrew and, you know, Jewish beliefs. You know, they actually sat together and said, hey, so we're going to use this story because it's going to teach this and da 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 da. And then we're going to use this one because it's going to teach this and da 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 da. Okay. I feel comfortable with knowing this knowledge because I learned in school about the Greek myths, you know, the Greek and Roman myths. I learned about the Norse mythology, you know, when I was learning about Native American traditions and Native American stories. I wasn't told that I was supposed to believe them, you know. They were presented to me as if they were morality stories. You know, it's not like I would really expect an animal to come up and talk to me. Though sometimes I might think Gus is talking to me, and then I'm just like, nah, I'm tripping, whatever. But no, they do communicate. They do communicate. It's just, are they going to come up to you and speak your language, or are they going to communicate telepathically, etc.? You know, I don't know. And this is where I differ from a lot of the people on YouTube, is because I'm not saying that I know. I might be tapped in, but that doesn't mean I'm getting all the information, you know, that okay. I want to stay on topic. I want to stay on topic because I'm getting pulled mentally in a lot of different directions. The Bible is a bunch of oral traditions that were passed down through the generations, centuries, millennia, long ago. Just like any of the other ancient indigenous oral traditions around the entire planet. The difference is they decided to write it down. And they decided to say, okay, this is how we're going to believe. This is what we're going to follow. Okay, so am I mad? Not at all. Not at all. Because so many other traditions did that. That's what was happening at the time. You know, so we can't be upset with a group of people wanting to immortalize their traditions and their beliefs and their faith, because this is what it is. You know, the stories that that we have read are the history of Jesus's bloodline. What happened during Jesus's life, and what happened soon after, you know, within the last, you know, within the recent couple 100 years after his death. So I guess I should start there. I said that there were 3 traditions. I said that there were 3. Sorry, I'm hearing him out there, and my mind is just, oh, Gus, and I hear this click, 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 and just it throws me off. It throws me off. But I'm at 20 minutes, guys. So you gotta wait, baby. You gotta wait. I've been doing pretty dang good. You know, if I can actually hold a conversation with a camera and do this every day, then I think I'm gonna be doing pretty good. See, nobody's here. Nobody's here. And I can't let him ruin this. I can't let him ruin this. So, there are three creation stories in the Bible. You've got Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. You've got the story of Adam and Eve, which came first. And then you've got the story, which is Genesis 1, that has God creating the everything. Everything. And then, creating animals and then creating humans, breathing the breath of life and etc. Now, the Adam and Eve story was then put second. Why? Because they wanted the story to fit. It makes sense. But the belief is that Adam and Eve are Jesus' bloodline. So there have been humans, long before Adam and Eve, let's say. There have been humans long before Adam and Eve, let's say. And then God creates Adam and Eve. Why? Because he had a plan. So I really want people to focus on what happened when Cain went out to find someone to marry. Went out to find, someone to have kids with. Because they didn't really have marriage back in those days. When his children decided to have children, and Adam and Eve's other children, which I'm sure, they had more, right? That's what I've read, and this is where we need to get into it. And then we have to, oh my gosh, there's a lot to unpack here. So I guess I'm just starting from the beginning, and that's going to be a lot. That's going to be a lot. I don't know if I can really do that, because that wasn't what I was trying to do. That wasn't what I was trying to do. I wasn't wanting to give people a Bible lesson, because there are plenty of other people who know way more of the Bible than I do, who can do that. I do, however, want people to know that you can believe in Jesus and not be a nationalist, not be somebody who believes that a certain color of skin is chosen by God. It's less important for me to break down the history of the Bible and the history of Judaism, the history of Islam, than it is for me to let you know that we are all one. We are all one. And this is something that I wanted to impart, and I tried to impart in my videos that I ended up deleting because they kept getting messed up. Thank you, Brazilians. Yay! I'm keeping going because I want to do a 30-minute long video. And the important thing for you to remember is the big three religions. I'm sure Buddhism and Hinduism and all those guys are probably just as big, if not bigger. But we call Judaism, Christianity, and Islam in that order, obviously chronologically, the big three. And those three religions all have the same God. Judaism, Islam, and Christianity all have the same God. If you don't believe me, look up the story of Abraham. Look up the story of Abraham. He had two sons. Two sons at first, before he had the whole... Okay? So, I want you to understand that God had his hand in the doings of all the peoples of the world. A long time ago, and I'm making this disclaimer before I say this. I was taught Pan-Indian culture is what it's called. So Indigenous American, Native American, American Indian, however you want to call it, culture that was put together, like as a whole, like it's become a spiritual belief as opposed to the, thousands of spiritual beliefs that they were before. There's a lot of history behind that. I want to tell you one really important story. Long time ago, here on Turtle Island, as we call it, this is the Western Hemisphere, North America. Here on Turtle Island, we weren't doing the greatest. And that's where a lot of these creation stories come from with Native peoples, is we weren't doing so good. And one day, these two guys were out hunting, and they see this woman. Do I want to tell this story? And I don't want to I don't want to disrespect the story. There were these two hunters that were going out trying to find some food, and they found this woman. And one of the men wasn't thinking very good thoughts about her, and he was destroyed by lightning right there next to his friend. The other guy, however, was a good-natured person and wanted to know what the woman, was doing, and she said, "Hey, prepare your people because I am coming to you with gift." And so she came and brought 7 sacred traditions and 7 sacred ceremonies. 7 rites, 7 ceremonies, 7 traditions. Okay. And I don't want to give up on this because here I am, 29 minutes and 43 seconds. She gave the people these traditions to give them hope, because this was a famine. This was a time when there was no food. I mean, of course, you're still going to go out and hunt when there's no food, right? You're going to try anyways. And so after teaching them these traditions and giving them these sacred rites, she transformed to a red buffalo, a yellow buffalo, a black buffalo, and a white buffalo. And the white buffalo is a symbol of prosperity, peace, health, and anytime a white buffalo is born, white buffalo calf is born, then it's said that the people will have a good year, a good healthy year. And we've had a lot of births. I tell you this because there are messengers that have come to us all over the world. All over the world. And let me rephrase my English there, because there were what? There have been messengers from God that have come to us all over the world. All over the world. And we can't look at one belief system and say that it's wrong. Because if it's about helping people, if it's about honor, if it's about respect, if it's about, taking care of one another, then why would you want to harm people? If you want to look at other traditions, if you want to look at other beliefs, check out Minute Faith. It's done by Spirit Science. And there's an actual movie that has, little, few minutes about each religion and basically what it's about. And then when you look at that, you're going to see that we all have similarities in our beliefs, and we all want the same things. So I'm going to keep on this. I'm going to do my best to get on here every day. I took Sunday off because I was busy. I took Monday off because, I did my best. But I hope y'all are having a good night. I love you. Take care and have a good night.